What's going on, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome to the 19th episode of Tuffy Talk. Thank y'all so much for tuning in with us. Please make sure if you haven't already, subscribe to us by hitting the button in the bottom right hand corner. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and want some other NC State content. And also check out our other episodes as well. Our Things NC State fans never say. All fans have loved it so far. If you haven't watched it, make sure to check it out. Simple as that. And also, too, make sure if you haven't followed us on Twitter or Instagram at Tuffy Talk Now, bam, please do so. And also, too, if you have any interest in any Tuffy Talk merchandise, make sure to direct message us. So on today's episode, we will be doing a little bit of a weekly review. Obviously, an exciting week that just happened with NC State for NC State fans. A lot of good stuff happened, and also too, right after that, we'll be interviewing the NC State sailing team. A lot of State fans may say, "We have a sailing team." Yep, here we go.
That's why Layton's wearing the sleeveless shirt today.
That's right. That's right. In honor of sailing team, sun's out, guns
it's summertime.
Right? So with that being said, Wolfpack Nation, let's go and get this thing started. What is going on, Wolfpack Nation? Thank y'all so much again for tuning in with us. Please make sure again, if you haven't already, subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, and again, please continue to support us. Really appreciate all the support that you guys have given us so far. Can't thank y'all enough for everything. So with that being said, again, really wanted to take just a quick minute and just talk about this week because it's been a great week so far for NC State. I mean, wouldn't you agree, Macon?
Oh yeah, we were just talking about this a little bit ahead of time, but you reminded me of some things I had not even really thought about. But man, this is getting town. I look forward to basketball and football generally like most fans do. But this season, I kind of get geared more towards, college baseball is coming up, the College World Series coming up. But man, there's some other teams we've got for state that are doing really well in the postseason. And I know we want to talk about those right now, but it's exciting.
Oh yeah, no kidding. And I mean, like for me, like personally, like, one team that's actually playing right now is actually men's golf. They're actually playing in the NCAA regionals, and they're actually tied for first after day one. So I mean, looking super strong so far. So I mean, again, it's a team that not many people talk about, but again, I'm telling you guys, and we've been saying all along, we're all around pack. Simple as that. We're not a football school. We're not a basketball school. We're all around, man. We got great teams all around. So a lot to be thrilled about so far, and like women's tennis. I know you were kind of following that as well, Macon.
Yeah, that was so. I was looking at that a little bit, and I know the women basically just the headline is that the women's tennis team has made it to their first ever Elite Eight. They're right now. They had to beat the USC Trojans. I think they beat them 4-1 to advance to the Elite Eight. And right now, the way it's set up, they would play Georgia. If they played Georgia, they would play the next matchup between Florida State or Texas. And that'll be really, really good matchup. It's kind of neat too, because I say they're in the Elite Eight, but all of the triangle schools are in the Elite Eight right now. You got State, Duke, and Carolina. Now, Duke and Carolina actually have to play each other to go and advance to the Final Four, if you will. And State's on the other end of the bracket, but it's kind of neat to even see you've got 4 out of the 8 teams are from the ACC, and 3 of them are right here in the triangle in our backyard. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, it just shows again how I mean, you mentioned even that we would have to play Florida State, so you go, man, like okay, maybe AC is a little bit of powerhouse of women's tennis. Something to think about.
You could get 3 out of 4 teams in the Final Four from the ACC. You could have State, Florida State, and Duke or Carolina.
Crazy.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and then the other sport we really wanted to mention, obviously, baseball. I mean, holy smokes, folks! I mean, to go from literally last week not even getting one vote in the AP poll to now being the 24th ranked team in the country. I mean, we're going to definitely be having an episode here soon breaking down baseball. But I mean, holy smokes, what a turnaround! And I mean, absolutely thrilled so far. Just got to keep this thing rolling. So that's a big thing.
And I saw that they had won. I think the stat was that State's baseball team. I think you mentioned they started out 4-9.
Mm-hmm.
They've won 22 out of their last 27 games. And they just swept Pitt, which I think was 16. I think is what their rank was.
They were,
and the last game they just played, they won 10-1. I think was it 10-1 or 10-3. I think it's 10-1.
10-3.
10-3. Okay, and they had 10 runs on 11 hits, and 5 were home runs.
Wow.
And 2 were from Terrell Tatum, who had a big weekend. But I'll tell you what, the biggest week was actually Johnny Butler. That dude was named ACC Player of the Week. He had, he's batting 500 or last week. At least I don't know if that's his average or his weekly just this past week,
Mhm.
but man, State has just been on a roll, especially at bat. And if they can just make sure the pitchers are squared away, and they've had a few of the pitchers really turn out for them in a big way recently. If they can just figure, make sure they are, slowly, not slowly, but just progressing healthily. Um, they're a troublesome team for a lot of players. Like they may be the hottest team in the ACC right now.
Don't take the foot off the gas. Simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So pretty much to kind of lay the lines in terms of what's kind of left over. So obviously, State hosts Florida State this weekend. State already did announce, if you don't know already, that they are going to be increasing capacity. So there's no excuse at all for Doak to not be sold out this weekend. So that first starts on Friday at 6:30, and if we beat Florida State, win at least 2 out of 3, then we're locked in as a top 4 team heading into ACC a tournament, which is huge
man,
in
I
terms
can't
of
wait.
scheduling. So with that being said, we're actually going to go into an interview right now with our NC State sailing team. So you guys will really enjoy it, a live deep diving in. So here we go. Before we start the interview, I just wanted to put a full disclosure out there that Olivia Gregg, the women's captain for the sailing team, was a part of this interview and was included in the interview with head coach Dana Magliola and co-captain Scott Harris. But due to audio issues discovered after the interview was completed, we were not able to include her responses in this interview. So we do apologize for this inconvenience, but hope that you all enjoy the interview. Thank you so much. All right, Wolfpack Nation, thank y'all so much for tuning in. We are here with 3 members of the NC State sailing team. So we got the 2 co-captains. We got Scott Harris and Olivia Gregg, and then we got the head coach, Dana Magliola. Thank y'all so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Coach Dana, we'll get to you. So where are you from originally? Then want to kind of ask for you, being the head coach, did you, I'm assuming more likely you sailed in college, and where was that at?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina,
Love it.
and actually went to undergrad at University of Virginia and did not sail for the university at that point. Their sailing program was not really a thing, although they have gotten together in the past few years. But yeah, sailing in college, I'd go home and do some sailing in Charleston, and then got involved here in Raleigh about eight and a half years ago. Started coaching the program here, and here we are today. So
Perfect. So speaking of, since you've been here for 8.5 years, so how has the team kind of progressed? Like, what would you say the biggest maybe changes have been from maybe when you first came on to where it is now?
sure. So one of the neat things about the sailing program here is it's the oldest club sport on campus. So it started in 1954, and they started racing in 1973. So there's a legacy here, but it hasn't always been the most organized group. And when I started in the fall of 2012, we had a roster of about 10 folks, some of whom had experience, all of whom wanted to compete and wanted to start to build a program here.
Mm-hmm.
And over the few years after that, we started to grow the roster, compete more rigorous practices, and really that kind of all-in mentality to build the program
Mm-hmm.
really helped us build a foundation to the point where we were out recruiting and a couple of years in and starting to really bring people to Raleigh to sail and go to school. So
Yeah, so I definitely got to ask about that. So so what would you say? Because definitely when you think of like a club team per se, you think of somebody comes on campus their freshman year, like, what can I do? And then they go, oh look, I can join the sailing team. But you're talking about like literally recruiting. So would you say that there's a balance between the two? Like, can somebody come up freshman year and be like, hey, I want to go on the sailing team? And also too, like how much would you say how many people are recruited and how many people are just joining right off the cuff?
one of the best things about recruiting on campus for new folks is, when we go to RecFest out on Miller Fields, you see the span of people and you see a big NC State sail
Mm-hmm.
above the whole crowd. So we get a lot of people that way who are interested in learning to sail. They grew up with a little bit of sailing experience. Um, they've sailed competitively and somehow didn't know that we had a program. That happened a lot in the past. It hasn't happened much recently.
Okay.
So we get people in that way, and they come in through the club and learn And then we've started recruiting from, folks that we know that are sailing in high school. High school sailing is a very competitive group as well and pretty active.
Mm-hmm.
And really starting to tell folks, if you want to study engineering or STEM, you want to go to school in a great place like Raleigh, and you want to compete at a high level in college sailing, state's your thing. And so that's kind of been the approach.
Wow. Okay. And then so what would you guys say for the most part? So, I mean, like, one of the big things which I saw was, I mean, your roster is pretty lengthy. There's a lot of people on the roster. So, wanted to kind of ask, like, how is the team formatted? Because I know, like, you just, like, here you got two captains in Scott and Olivia. And so you just kind of want to know kind of a little bit about how the team is formatted. And then also too, like, I know that when you guys compete, typically you guys compete in pairs, usually on a sailboat. There's usually two people on there. So I mean, how is that kind of formatted? Just kind of the whole general format from a not competing to a competing.
Yeah, you want to do co-ed
Yeah.
and women's?
So we have a co-ed and women's team. We're all one team, but we compete in different events. So, like you said, our roster is usually pretty big.
Mhm.
Even though this is kind of a weird year, we have a pretty big roster, and that kind of lets us cover a bunch of different bases. And so, like if you look at our schedule every season, we have really, really competitive events that we go to, and then we have more developmental events. And so, having a big roster allows us to kind of have this depth where we can send developmental sailors to developmental events, and then our most competitive sailors to competitive events. And then it also gives us like that bandwidth to send a women's team as well, because women's sailing and college sailing is more on the rise, and there's more and more women's events every year. And so it kind of gives us more of a flexibility to like do more events. And so we actually had our draft, like we have this draft that we do for events each fall and spring. And so we have a crazy schedule for the fall.
Mhm.
And knowing that we have a big roster to fill those events, it just elevates the program that much more. Like we have 3 or 4 trips to New England in the fall planned. We have a trip to Wisconsin, and then that's on top of all of our normal events around the Southeast.
Wow.
So that big roster definitely allows us to um, like get our name out there, and the more events we go to, like our NC State shows up on the score sheet, which is good for recruiting and just getting our name out there.
Mm-hmm. So I know that you guys were saying that the NC State Sailing is one of the oldest club teams that NC State has, and so I mean, would you say compared to maybe out like all colleges that have sailing teams that I mean, are you guys pretty old? I mean, are a lot of them pretty much newer, or I mean, or have most colleges out there had sailing teams for quite some time?
So, college sailing started in like 1870 something at Yale.
Wow.
And a lot of programs, in the Ivy Leagues and some of the sort of older colleges in the Mid Atlantic and New England. But college sailing as we know it started in like the 60s and 70s, where you had a lot more programs, conferences developing the same way you have the SEC and the ACC. And I'd say over probably the past 10 or 15 years, you've seen it become very similar to other sports with scheduling and like again, like we talked about recruiting. Um, there are probably about 250 colleges that field a sailing team, and of that, about 40 of them, 45 of them are varsity programs in their athletic department, and others are club teams that run the gamut from some folks call us like a super club, a coached, well organized club, to you know 4 people getting together to go sailing and they start a team, and everything in between.
Wow. Okay, man. Yeah. So, and I mean, whether you're a club or a varsity, I mean, do you compete against each other, or is it okay? Yeah. Wow. Okay. So the next thing, which I mean, you were talking about kind of conferences and kind of who you're competing against. So, one of the things I was seeing is that you guys are part of the South Atlantic Intercollegiate Sailing Association. So, kind of, what are some of the schools that make up that conference, and then you know because I did see there were some local schools on that and part of that association as well. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, SESA is basically like a combination of the SEC and the ACC for like college basketball and
Mhm.
football. Like
Mhm.
a lot of the big players are like the Florida schools, so Florida, Florida State, Miami, and then you get some like more oddball schools that aren't as big in the other sports, like Jacksonville University and College of Charleston is probably the best team in our conference, and um, like even UNC has a team, and Duke, UNCW, and so a lot of those coastal ACC schools are who we compete against on a conference level, and then we compete around the nation. So the like NISA is like the New England. That would be, I guess, like the Big East and the Ivy League. I guess would be the best way to describe it. That's like the Harvards and the Yale and MIT, and so we kind of see a wide range of schools, and it's cool because some of them like at some events that we'll go to, like the Florida Georgia football game will be going on, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll have an event in Jacksonville, and we'll be right down the river from the Florida Georgia game, and so like we'll be paying attention to that too, and then like we have college sailing and college football going on, which is pretty cool.
It's a little crazy.
So if like an NC State fan, for example, wanted to go to one of your events, so typically what would they see? I mean, like how many teams usually compete? And I mean, just what's the kind of overall format of an event that takes place?
So we've really encouraged folks to come out and spectate. We've been holding regattas in Raleigh, organized, promoted regattas since 2015,
Mm-hmm.
and we've always reached out to the student base, to fans, to alumni. From the shore, you can watch. It may not be obvious what's going on, but
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty good viewing. And when we do have an event, one of the neat things is we have people on the team who aren't competing at the event
Mhm.
will usually be shoreside to talk about what's going on with fans and explain things.
Mhm.
It's not the most accessible sport just because, you know, all of the home fleet, we sail on home fleet boats. They all have an NC State logo.
Mhm.
So it's very confusing as to which one's NC State. Uh, but once you kind of get it and you've got someone telling you what's going on, it's a great sport to watch. And as a regatta goes on, if it's close and scores are online and live,
Mhm.
it can become a real nail biter.
So that's interesting. So I actually didn't know that. So you actually so the people that come compete on NC State boats. So you guys don't bring your boats with you to events.
Thank God.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. Well, just because I mean, it's just kind of hard to imagine, like like UNC or some like that, like some other school competing on some other school's boats. It's interesting.
And for every event that we go to, like the host venue, like they have the boat. So like a school can't host unless they have the boats. And you'd be surprised, like most schools in CESA do have enough boats to host like certain events. Like at NC State, we have 8 FJs, which is so we can have 8 teams. But at a powerhouse like Charleston, they have 18 FJs and 18 420s, and so they hold nationals there probably like once every 10 years or so, maybe even more. And yeah, so like that's where our conference champs was this year, where we qualified, and like every venue is different, and they all have different. They're all FJs and 420s, but each school is capable of hosting most events.
Okay. And so I mean, like, what would you guys say? So especially for like for you, Scott and Olivia. So what would you say your typical weekly schedule is? Like, how often do you guys practice? I'm assuming you probably have, one event, during the weekend. Like, how do you guys kind of balance everything overall? Just, kind of give us your typical week per se.
And a lot of weekends, like we'll be sending, like in a normal year, we'll be sending multiple teams out like across the country per weekend. I know for our schedule in the fall, there's one weekend where we'll have 3 events, and we'll have one group of 4 or 5 going to New England, a group of 4 or 5 in Wilmington, and a group of 4 or 5 at like Navy or something. And so it can get pretty busy on the weekends. And so Well, yeah, like Olivia said, we do this season. We did Mondays and Friday practices, and then we always do Thursday night meetings, usually in person. They were on Zoom
Mm-hmm.
this season, but it can get pretty busy for like a 5 or 6 week span when regattas are going on, and then we're usually so in the fall we'll practice pretty much right when we get to school,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll go all the way until Thanksgiving, and then in the spring we'll usually take January off and then start middle of February, and then since we made nationals this year, we'll be going all the way until early June. So that's the nice thing about sailing, especially like in CESA, we can sail all year round.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a fall and a spring season. The spring season is a little more important, but it's definitely nice to have fall and spring season.
Okay. Love it. Awesome. Yeah, well, I mean, because that's one of the biggest things I know from my time working with the football team. That's the toughest thing is really being a student athlete and really being able to balance both sides of that. And I know that from looking at the roster, it looks like there's a good amount of like engineers there as well, which I'm like, I mean, balancing engineering and doing a full sport as well. That's a lot. So
One of the things that I think we really brag on with our program is that our student athletes are taking very challenging majors, and our team grade point average is usually around a 3.3 or a 3.5, somewhere in that range.
wow,
We regularly have student athletes that are ICSA college sailing, all academic team, SASA all academic team. So we're really proud of just how well our student athletes perform in the classroom, in addition to keeping that very rigorous schedule during the year. So
hmm absolutely, no kidding. That's amazing. 3.335. That's amazing. So hats off to y'all for that for sure. So kind of getting into learning a little bit more about sailing. So one of the things I was really interested about was so I know from sailing's perspective, there are Olympic teams that do compete in Olympics for sailing. So what is kind of the overall general life after college, sailing in terms of like professional level and Olympic level? Like what's kind of out there, what kind of options are out there? Just kind of give us a little bit 411, I guess, about that.
So it kind of depends on what you do in college sailing. You can do as much sailing as you want or as little sailing as you want after college.
Mm-hmm.
At the very top of the line, a lot of the U.S. sailing Olympic team has college sailors on it. Like for example, so one of the classes in the Olympics is called the 470, and they're one of the team members on that 470 team went to Eckerd College, who we compete against pretty regularly. And so, like another example, like a Harvard skipper a few years ago, Annie Hagar, she also did a 470 campaign for the Olympics. So that's a possibility for some.
some of them get out of the two-handed sort of dinghies into catamarans.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have college sailors that go on to compete in different classes like a NACRA, um, uh, other kinds of boats. And quite honestly, we have Olympians who are still doing college sailing. So when we line up at the College of Charleston on the line, like we're right up against people that competed in Rio,
Yeah.
and they're out there in the mix, and which is great. Sometimes we beat them,
Mm.
Yeah. In Charleston a few weeks ago when we had our conference champs, um, her name is Paris. I'll just call her out. Her name is Paris Hankin, and
She's really good.
she sails for College of Charleston. She originally started at Charleston, I think, in like 2015. Took 2 years off. She campaigned and she competed in Rio in the Olympics, and then came back to school and is still sailing for Charleston. And so
Wow.
every once in a while, we'll see an Olympian on our water, which is definitely pretty fun to see that.
Well, I mean, yeah, you never. That's one thing that's maybe different is you never see NFL players that are also playing in college as well. So that's definitely different. So that's amazing. That's really really cool. And then so one of the things too when I was kind of doing some research about sailing as well as I saw that there was it's called the America's Cup, which is in Auckland, New Zealand, and really did want to kind of ask, overall kind of what that is, because it seems like a very unique event. Because I mean, first of all, it's America's Cup and in New Zealand. So just wanted to kind of ask a little bit about that, kind of what that is really.
Yeah, so the America's Cup, it actually rotates. So whichever country wins it gets to host it the next cycle.
Hmm.
The best way to describe the America's Cup is kind of like it's a weird thing because it's in a different class of boat each cycle, and it's every 3 years, I believe. And so most of the time, college sailors aren't going into the America's Cup like out of college, even the best.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the America's Cup is more for like established sailors. I wouldn't say older, but usually the people competing in the America's Cup have already won a world championship or a North American championship in their like separate class of boat. And so, like for example, the American skipper, his name is Jimmy Spittle. He has won multiple world championships in other classes of boats. And then the U.S. America's Cup team says, okay, this guy's qualified. We're going to have him drive our boat. And so,
Yeah. Or you get someone like Ben Ainsley from the UK.
Yeah.
He was a gold medal winner in the laser, single-handed boat.
Yeah, it's kind of like the World Cup for soccer. Like the World Cup, it's every 4 years, and it's like countries competing against each other. It's not really like the EPL or La Liga. It's like where the countries come together and really compete for like that country like winning the world status regatta, I guess. And so
Mm-hmm.
a few years ago, the U.S. I call it the greatest comeback in sports history. The U.S. was down to New Zealand nine, or it was 8 races to 1, I believe, and you needed to win 9 races to win the event, and we were down 8-1. And Jimmy Spittle came back. We won however many straight races to win that event 9-8, and then so because because the United States won it, we got to choose where it was hosted, and so we chose Bermuda. It came back to Bermuda, and then New Zealand won it, and that's why it was in Auckland this year.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of like the very tippy top of sailing, like post Olympic life.
There are some classes though, like the America's Cup. There are some sort of sailing races that college sailors do get more actively involved in sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's the Volvo Ocean Race, which was one time called the Whitbread Around the World Classic. Now it's called the Ocean Race, but essentially it's a multi-stop, multi-team around the world race on 70-foot, carbon fiber yachts. And over the past 2 sessions of that, and I think that happens every couple of years too, you have college sailors, in particular, 2 sailors, Charlie Enright and Mark Toll, who sailed at Brown University, which is a great sailing program. They built a campaign around one of these boats and sailed competitively in both races, winning several stages. I think that they finished the overall event in second, the first go round. But there is a future for college sailors in the broader sailing world.
I mean, even like on our level, um, we're not at an Olympic level by any means. But, like my dad and I are campaigning for the Lightning World Championships right now, and so my dad grew up sailing a boat called Lightning, or Lightnings. It's a 3-person boat, and like I'm going home this weekend for practice, and we're campaigning for the World Championships, and so like there's all different routes that college sailors can take, and there's a bunch of different classes, and the options are pretty much limitless. And then there's big boats too. Like I prefer smaller dinghy sailing; it's closer racing. But then there's also bigger boat, like keel boat options, where it's longer distance races, and there's tons of different stuff you can do with it.
Awesome. Wow. Okay. Well, appreciate all that insight for sure. I mean, that's fascinating stuff. And I love the comeback. Nothing, it's always a great comeback story. So that's awesome. So, wanted to kind of, one of the things too, when I was looking at y'all's websites, that y'all said that you guys were trying to foster an appreciation and engagement in the sport of sailing. So I wanted to kind of ask, like, is there anything in terms of events that you guys do outside of practices and events themselves to really try and promote the sport, trying to get more people involved and interested in sailing, maybe even outside of NC State?
Yeah, so in 2016, 2015, I think,
Mm-hmm.
we started doing community sailing during the summers, community dinghy racing, college style dinghy racing, open to the public.
Nice.
And what we do is we basically one night a week we hold small informal regattas, and anybody who wants to come down can come out. No experience necessary, any age. And usually we have several student athletes who are in town during the summer, help to run the program, make the sport accessible, pair up with people that maybe don't know what they're doing in a boat.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been able to introduce, I think, before COVID, before we had to call it off for last summer, we had almost a little bit over 700 people had been through that program
Mm-hmm.
in our community, which is just one of our things we're most happy about.
Yeah.
Also do stuff like outside of sailing too. Like we're a pretty close team, and so like, when you join the club, there's like earlier this year, like we went like paintballing, and we'll go bowling every once in a while. And
Mm-hmm.
there's also like this sort of community that we've built. The club has shrunk a little bit through COVID, but during a normal year, like there's like a lot of non-sailing events that the club will do. And then if you do end up joining the race team, there's just team events, and so we try to include other stuff to make it fun for those that are just getting into sailing. And there's especially if you join the club, we try to make it to where there's really no pressure of like if you don't have any experience, like go have a great time bowling, and then someone will teach you how to sail.
Yeah. So how can so I mean, just for curious too, I mean, for those viewers who are interested, so how can they, see, when these summer outings are that they could come join you guys for sailing in the summer?
So we put everything on our website, go.ncsu.edu/sailing.
Hmm.
Follow us on any one of our social medias, usually SailPack or NC State Sailing.
Okay.
And we promote them pretty regularly. Before COVID, our last summer sailing got picked up on a things to do for free in Raleigh blog, and we went from having like 20 people a night show up to having 50 people a night show up. So they've gotten popular, and I think that we do a pretty good job promoting
Yeah.
uh, when we have these opportunities.
Wow. And so I mean, curious too, especially, with it being such an odd year, and you did mention, COVID a couple times. So I mean, how has COVID really affected y'all's team? Maybe your process, have you had to, change, what you're doing at all due to the global pandemic?
Yeah, yeah, yes, yes. We have. You got to practice, and Scott and Olivia accosted you with a thermometer. Yes, taking your temperature on the forehead, and
Oh,
you had to sign in for contact trace. Masks at practice, and this is all throughout college sailing too. The programs that were lucky enough to compete and practice this year, we're all going through a lot of protocols to do it.
mhm.
We were considered a low risk sport, but that still meant lots of safety precautions.
Yeah.
And before a regatta, for example, the travel squad has to test within 72 hours of the start of competition. You have to get confirmation that everybody's compliant before you can even compete.
Yeah. Well, yeah, definitely, it definitely affected every sport a little different. So that's good to see though you guys are still strong on that. So, one of the things I wanted to kind of review too is I know that looking back at y'all season so far, so you finished third out of over 30 plus teams in the conference for the 2021 spring season. So definitely congrats on that. I'm sure you guys are thrilled about that and super excited about that. So just wanted to kind of ask, overall. So first of all, I mean, how exciting, was it to to get the news that you guys qualified for nationals in Annapolis, Maryland from June 7th to June 8th? And then, how long have you guys had that, set as a goal? Or like, how long did, I guess, you guys, say having your mind that, this is an achievable goal that, we want to go for NC State Sailing's first ever national championship competition?
Well, to answer your first question, we knew, like we were all there, like the moment we found out. And so the way our regattas are structured is so there's an A and a B division. And so Olivia and I actually sailed together and we sailed in A division. And so we finished our last race and we were waiting for our B division to finish. And as soon as B division crossed the line, we knew like the points going into that last race. And so we went crazy on the water. Yeah, it was insane.
And it was a nail biter. I mean, we knew going in. So day one, we were up on Miami and USF, and we had to beat them to qualify for There's only 3 berths to national finals for our whole conference. And we were in third on Saturday evening, and we got there Sunday morning. We're up 7 on Miami. We're up 9 on USF. So we knew we had to keep them at bay.
Mm-hmm.
And we put distance between us and Miami. We left them behind, and USF just started chipping away at our lead throughout the day, race after race. And quite honestly, for like the last 4 races, I couldn't even watch. Like I had to have someone describing to me what was happening because I couldn't handle it.
Oh,
It was close.
I love that.
The good guys won in the end.
That's right.
Spoiler alert.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, yeah, to think, you guys have been around for, was it now 70 years, and to go to the first ever national title this year during a crazy year like this, that's remarkable to say the least. So definitely, definitely congrats on that. So I do got to ask, now that you guys have made it to a national championship, which I'm sure was probably one of the larger goals that you guys had for a team. So what's kind of the next goal on the list, besides maybe the obvious one of winning a national title? Is there kind of like an in between it all?
There actually are more goals we're looking towards. And so we've qualified this year, but we're also kind of looking towards the long term, especially once Olivia and I graduate. Like we want NC State Sailing to be at nationals every year. And it's very attainable. The recruiting has been stepping up a lot. That's so our long-term goal is definitely to have like a continuation of the program and not like a fall off at all. And then kind of a shorter term goal is we're trying to get into this thing called cross regional status. And so college sailing, the structure is kind of changing on us as we're sort of on our way out. But there's the way they've structured it is like there's this label called cross regional teams that going forward are going to be like the elite teams. And so we're kind of like right on the border of that. And
Kind of like the Power Five conferences.
yeah,
You know, those schools that are like probably those top 40 something varsities, not a whole lot of club programs.
but with us qualifying for nationals and if we have a strong fall season, it's very likely that we'll become cross regional, and that only helps in the recruiting process. And so we're trying not to be a one hit wonder, if that makes sense. Like we're trying to keep it going, and we're bringing back all of our strong sailors next year, and so we have a very good chance to qualify again next spring, and then hopefully after that we're bringing in more sailors to hopefully keep qualifying each year because there's definitely like if you look at the scores from nationals at every year there's 10 or 12 teams that are there. It's like Alabama in the college football playoff. There are teams like that are at nationals almost every year, and we definitely like our goal is to become one of those teams.
And one of the, we've got a lot of talent that's come in over the past 2 years also. And, our strongest recruiting class from this past year was our women's team. So our women's team, we started in 2013 or 2014, to field a women's team. And right now, y'all are talented.
Yes,
And
yes.
when y'all were they were on points away from nationals for women's this year. So it's been a banner year.
Wow, that's awesome. It's so kind of one more question I kind of had to kind of learn about the team a little bit. So what would you say maybe is the toughest challenge that maybe a sail a person a part of the sailing team might encounter that maybe others don't, maybe per se, is there something, challenge wise that maybe is a little bit unique about the sport or being a part of the team that maybe is a little different than other sports?
I actually think every single person on the team has a different challenge, and I say that because we have a huge range of skill on our team. Like our top skippers on our team have been sailing their whole lives, and those challenges might be more like results based at events and
Psychological.
yeah, like beating certain teams and doing well. And then other challenges for like the more developmental sailors are just like having the confidence to compete at practice with more experienced people there. And
Mhm.
I think you could get a different like challenge from every sailor on the team, and like good challenges, like trying to overcome like being new to sailing against more experienced sailors, and just trying to like break into sailing, I guess.
Mhm.
And I think Olivia kind of hits on it. Like our team culture is really inclusive.
Good.
We kind of have this philosophy of no macho, which basically means you have to be comfortable saying I don't know, saying I'm cold, or this is too windy,
Mhm.
or whatever it happens to be, or my head's not in the game. I've got academic challenges right now, and having that kind of family environment to pick up when you need it.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the best parts that makes it kind of that community that we've built around the team.
So definitely the one last thing I definitely wanted to make sure that we kind of end on. So I know that you guys are in the middle right now of fundraising for your movement to nationals. I know that due to COVID that you guys haven't been able to get any funding from the university, so you're having to pay it through donations and out of pocket. So wanted to kind of for the viewers who are wanting to donate to that mission. So what's the best way that they can donate, and maybe where are some places that they can find that they can donate to the cause?
Sure. Like you said, this year has been challenging with the university. University supports us pretty well during normal times, but travel and lodging have been out this year. So we've had to bootstrap it. Our website is the first place to go to find out what we're planning to do. We're spending money on travel and lodging and training, trying to get ready for the deep end of the pool here. And so that's the first place to start. And we've been really, really lucky. There've been a lot of generous support.
Great.
Family, friends. We've even gotten donations from sort of other club teams who are excited to see a club make it into the finals.
Yeah.
There's some ambition there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's great to hear. Well, thank y'all so much again for tuning in. Best of luck to y'all at nationals. Definitely, do your best. I mean, definitely, win it all if you can. Hey, we'll have no issue with that as
No
state fans.
pressure.
We have no issue with that if y'all want to bring back a title. Trust me. So thank y'all again for your time. Really appreciate it. Best of luck to y'all and stay safe.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Layton.
thanks for having us.
Thank y'all. All right, Wolfpack Nation. Hope y'all enjoyed the interview as much as we did. I mean, again, it's just so cool to really just get some insight into those sports that maybe a lot of teams didn't really, or a lot of people didn't really know about, But I mean, again, just like we were saying earlier, I mean, teams are really shining. And again, for this team to literally make it to its first ever national tournament, I mean, it just speaks volumes. And they've been around for over 70 years, and first time there. So again, it just shows the trajectory for this team. So go to www.salepack.org. Again, that's www.salepack.org, and you could donate through there. And so again, hope y'all really enjoyed that, and thank y'all so much for your kindness and helping them towards their goal. So with that being said, again, thank y'all so much again for tuning in. Please make sure, again, if you haven't already, subscribe to us by hitting the button bottom right hand corner. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Tuffy Talk Now. And please feel free to reach out to us and like this video if you enjoyed it. Check our other ACC content, and we'll see y'all next week. And hopefully have another big week coming up here for state fans. So thank y'all so much again for tuning in. As always, go Pack.